Nina, would you please do the roll call?
Mayor Lynch,
Here.
Member Collins,
Here.
Member Lewis,
Here.
Member Young Johnson. Here. Member Williams.
We have the approval of the minutes. Did everybody get them?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes for the June 14th meeting?
I second that motion.
We have motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We have unfinished business tag day request, Light of Life Food Pantry. Someone here? If you just please come forward to the table there. The mic is already on, so we can hear you.
My name is Marlene Paris, and I'm with Light of Life Food Pantry, and we're asking to have a tag day to raise money for our food pantry for the following year on October 1st.
I'll make a motion, we approve the tag day for the food pantry.
I second that motion.
We have motion and a second. Is there any discussion? You know the areas where you're supposed to stand
Yes,
and that no children are allowed out on the street and that. I mean, we recently had one and I did see some kids out on the street, so we just don't want anything happening to the kids, so.
right, they have to be over 16?
Yes, it's always more basic.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Is there no further questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, do you need this?
Nina, do you need that, her form?
No.
So be sure that you have, you know, like something that identifies who you are, because we have several food pantries, and I think people get confused, so that was why we changed that, so that everybody understands where your food pantry is.
Okay.
Thank you. We have special event request, Park Department End of Summer Festival. Amy?
Hello.
Hello.
Sit. Okay, so this is a new festival, Saturday, September 17th at Founders Square. It's going to be from 11 to 10, and we'll have live music all day, excuse me, food trucks, and then a beer garden. Only those three things.
Is the park running the beer garden?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is this a paid event?
The public can come and go as they please. You pay for your own, the beer and the food, of course, but it's free to walk in and out and free parking, everything. Mhm. It's just adding something extra. We've had a lot of things cancel again this year for the month of September, so we just kind of want to fill the calendar up and get people out, and Founders has been kind of empty over the last few years, so it's such a beautiful park, we just want to show it off.
Do you have any idea about how many you'll be expecting?
Unfortunately, no, not an exact. I'm hoping for, I mean, the hopes is to have 5,000 people down there coming and going as it, you know, that's the hopes, but it's just a free flowing of people, and this is the first year for it, but people are, I mean, the market has been hopping each week. You know, people are just wanting to get out, and I'm hoping for a beautiful day, and so I'm hoping for 5,000, so we'll see. Yes.
Will you have vendors there as well as the
No.
food and that? There will be no vendors?
No vendors, not like the crafters and things like that,
Okay.
and all of those sales, no. It's just gonna be music and food and the beer garden for this one.
Do you have an idea of how many food vendors?
How many food vendors?
Yeah.
Probably about 10 food vendors for this one.
Oh, okay. I was curious because I'm hungry, so.
Oh.
I was just imagining what the food would be.
Well, make sure you come Friday and Saturday, because I have a lot this weekend. A lot of food trucks are gonna be at Founders this weekend.
It's almost like a food truck festival
I
this
know.
weekend.
It's going to be very busy between the market and then the 4th of July festival this weekend, fireworks. It's going to be hopping down there.
I'll make a motion, we approve the end of summer festival for September 17th.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, Amy, on to the Harvest Festival.
Okay, this is an event we've had for the last few years. There's no alcohol involved in this one. It will be food, live music all day. It's from 11 to 7, also down at Founders. And then we will have all of the crafters, and it's geared more towards harvest. So I already have like cloggers coming, and the music is a more acoustic, family-oriented festival. It's been very successful. So that's Saturday, October 1st from 11 to 7.
So Amy, I'm looking at your application and it says alcohol will be served, yes. And I see that it says food, music, and booze. So is that,
That's the end of summer festival one.
I'm looking at Harvest Festival.
It's
Oh,
on the
I
Harvest Festival
apologize.
one, too.
I apologize for that, because the Harvest Festival, there's no alcohol involved in that one. I apologize.
And you're still expecting 5,000 people?
Well, Harvest Festival is pretty successful. This is our 3rd year for it. It's pretty busy down there. We've had, because they come to the shopping and it's kind of a long day. 2 years I did pony rides. Last year I did bounce houses because the pony ride people went out of business. And so it is definitely thousands of people they run through. They park at the huge lot down there by KFC, that huge lot, they park down there. And then, of course, now with our additional parking, they'll be parking there with our additional parking lot that we have.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Harvest Festival for October 1st.
I second that motion.
We have a motion by Jamie, seconded by Joetta. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Hope you have great weather, Amy. It's a great
Yes.
time of year, the fall, and it's, usually we have pretty good Septembers and Octobers, so let's hope.
Yes. Hoping for great weather. Hopefully I'll see you all out this weekend. All our stuff happening. Thank you.
We have a solicitor permit request for Alpha Storm Solutions. Is someone here from Alpha Storms?
Morning.
Good morning. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do? And
Yeah, so my name is Cordero Ortiz. I'm the regional sales manager with Alpha Storm. What we do is mainly exteriors of home with storm damage. Recently, Portage was hit with a fairly large storm. There was a lot of hail damage. And we've done, I don't know, over the last 5 years, probably 60 to 80 houses that we've done work on here. So we're looking for a solicitor's permit. What we do is we do free inspections for the homeowners. If they do have the storm damage that their insurance takes care of, we help them through the process of getting that taken care of. They only pay their deductible. Insurance is the one who comes up with all the pricing, so there's no scam as far as trying to work over homeowners on pricing or anything like that. And then we only get paid if we actually complete the work on the home.
Where's your office based out of?
Right here in Hobart, Route 6 and Ridge.
And how many workers or staff will you have, and will it be yourself and other people that are
That'll
going
be
to do it?
myself and as of right now, 3 others here. So I usually don't do the soliciting, I'm just overviewing, so it'd really be 3 of them that are knocking.
so Scott, have you looked at this application? Do you have any comment on it?
We've looked over the background checks, we have no concerns.
You have dates in mind for this?
Usually it's, when we do them, it's like yearly or, 6 months or something like that. I'm not too sure what you guys approve for. When the storms hit, the homeowners only have 1 year to file the claim, otherwise they lose their coverage over the storm. So it'd basically be 1 year from the date of the storm would be, we can't help them anymore, so.
And you're licensed to work in the city? You've gone through the building department?
Yes.
What hours you be soliciting?
Typically as early as 9, and usually they're done by like 7 o'clock. We're usually not actually starting until probably closer to like 10 or 11 though.
I make a motion to approve Alpha Storm Solutions.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion by Joetta, seconded by Jamie. Is there any further discussion? Dan, do we have anything to add?
Not that I can think of, Madam Mayor, I think it's been covered.
Okay, if there are no further questions, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have change order number 2 for paving and repair project. AJ?
Good morning, Madam Mayor, members. Before you this morning for your consideration is change order number 2 for the 2021 street paving and repair project. This is an add order in the amount of $8,100 that will be paid to Milestone for work completed by their subcontractor, Egoff Coates Construction, for removal of existing culverts at Myers Elementary School, the installation of new culverts, and then new metal end sections. The work includes, as noted in the change order, the replacing of the 4 driveways at Myers Elementary School from asphalt to concrete approaches. It'd be staff's recommendation to approve change order number 2 in the amount of $8,100.
This contract is still well under what was originally approved, right? Because of
Yes, sir.
decreases?
Yes, the original contract amount was just shy of $2.5 million, and you'll note on the change order that there's been a decrease in the amount of just over $490,000.
I'll make a motion we approve change order number 2 for an additional $8,100 for the improvements around Myers School.
Yes, sir.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
We have Crowley Engineering, introduction of CNG maintenance garage. Randy?
At a previous board meeting, we asked permission to hire Crowley to look at one of our buildings to evaluate it for CNG, and he's got that presentation here to present to the board, so.
Hi, good morning. I'm Greg Crowley with Crowley Engineering. We're a MEP engineering firm based in Schererville. Our niche or specialty is in low carbon energy, alternative energy initiatives. We work with clients, mostly municipal clients throughout the country, with assisting them with different types of improvements that they are looking to do with their infrastructure, ranging from weatherization for multifamily to alternative fuel, similar to this project with CNG for City of Portage. We most recently completed a similar project with City of Muncie. Muncie Sanitary District had a new building constructed specifically for CNG for supporting their refuse operations. So I'm happy to answer any questions or just kind of walk you through however you want to proceed. Okay, I'll just walk through the findings. So we had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Reeder and his staff a few weeks ago to discuss the goals for this project. As we understand it, the city will be acquiring new CNG vehicles to support the refuse fleet, with the first couple of trucks, I think, slated to be delivered sometime this fall. And then there will be kind of a staged acquisition of more vehicles over the next few years. The existing fleet is comprised of primarily diesel vehicles, which are noted for having higher carbon emissions, in addition to, as you can expect today, the cost for refueling is significant. So with CNG, the cost is significantly lower because the U.S. has an abundance of natural gas, and so we're not importing that fuel source. But related to that, with the transition to CNG, and specifically the maintenance of those vehicles, it's important to have a maintenance facility that is able to properly manage that type of fuel source. CNG, natural gas, which is a methane fuel, is lighter than air. So it's important that when you're doing maintenance on these vehicles, that the facility has the proper safeguards and safety measures in place to enable safe maintenance of those types of vehicles. What's most important is to really try to avoid any type of electrical hazards and or open flames inside these types of repair facilities because of that lighter than air gas that methane is. So what we did is a few weeks ago, we visited the site, streets and sanitation facility, and specifically focused our efforts on building F, which is the building that was identified for performing improvements to prepare it for CNG maintenance. If you turn this slide, it's the third slide in your deck or page, we just provided a kind of a general profile of the building. It's roughly 4,600 square feet. Currently, it's an unfinished space, so you have exposed timber and interior wood frame inside that space. The exterior is a galvanized sheet metal. Currently 5 overhead doors, each 14 foot high and facing north. And in addition, there are 3 egress doors, 2 on that north face and 1 on the south wall. Those elements are important because if you look at the next slide, with our assessment, what we did was perform a point cloud scan. So we brought over a 3D laser scanner to essentially capture all the details of the existing facility so that we could figure out what the considerations might be for performing a design. But the key thing is trying to make sure that the improvements meet the building code. And so that next slide really points out what's really important. I broke them down into 3 major categories, and which is typical for many CNG type facilities. The first category is with regards to heating. Currently, that building has a single infrared tube heater in the center area of the space, in addition to 2 unit heaters that are hanging along the southeast and southwest corners. Those pose a potential hazard for a CNG maintenance garage because they typically have an open flame and they're perched a bit higher in terms of the elevation inside the space. So we're recommending that those would be removed from the existing garage. And then consideration for a new heating system would be comprised of radiant floor heating. That's really a best practice because what you're essentially doing is you're incorporating a boiler system which would be separated from the actual service area, and then installing essentially like a PEX type tubing inside the concrete floor, and just allowing that heat to radiate up from the floor. Well, our experience is from talking to a number of maintenance technicians, is they find that to be even a better work environment for them, so they're a bit more productive because they can feel the warmth of the floor as they're working around. And also in certain environments or certain cases when they're working on vehicles and they need to get underneath the vehicle, that part of the vehicle is even warm as well. So it does allow them to be a bit more productive from a work standpoint. The other category, next category I listed is with regards to electrical. What's typical is the incorporation of a gas monitoring system to be able to detect if there were a gas release inside the space. There are two types of gases, or two categories of gases that you primarily want to be focused on. One is with regards to methane, the CNG itself. If for whatever reason there were a leak or a line failure, gas line, you want to be able to detect it and notify workers so that they can take quick action to either respond to the source and or to take immediate action to evacuate if necessary. The other is with regards to toxic gases. So you're talking about nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide. Because you're still going to continue to maintain some diesel vehicles in your fleet and as part of the service effort, because you'll have a mix of CNG and diesel, it's important that you also have those types of sensors installed. So in case those vehicles are running, you can think about a typical winter day. Technician may be working on a vehicle, you're in an enclosed space. You really are trying to make sure you don't hit an OSHA threshold in terms of exposure, worker exposure to those types of toxic gases. The other element with regards to electrical is because it's an unfinished space, there's some existing conduit and junction boxes located around the perimeter of the space that would need to be essentially relocated or moved further out. We anticipate that the walls will need to be finished, and so in order to properly get access to those electrical junction boxes, we would need to relocate the electrical junction boxes. And then also, we listed it as an option, but actually from discussion with Mr. Reeder and the staff, we thought it'd be important to actually incorporate a shunt trip circuit as part of the electrical wiring as well. The need for that is related to traditional hot work that would take place in a repair garage. So you think about heavy duty work, more like sanding, grinding, welding, anything like that that might generate a spark. You want to make sure that, again, if there was a detection of a hazard, that the shunt trip would shut down that equipment just to help remove that potential hazard. And then the last category is with regards to ventilation. Ventilation is probably one of the most important elements to make sure that is incorporated with the facility improvements. One, in terms of meeting the building code, when you start to do these improvements, you want to make sure that the occupants are actually receiving the proper amount of fresh air inside the space. One element is to make sure that there would be the installation of supply air louver, an exhaust fan. So whenever the space is occupied, that fan and louver would open and allow fresh air to flow through the space. And then a second level of protection is really more of a purge ventilation. So in the event of a gas detection event or activity, so whether it was a toxic gas release or a methane gas release, we would be considering VFD fans to be able to step up and increase the volume and number of air changes per hour of air to flow through that facility to help effectively purge any type of gas release inside the space. And so, also listed office ventilation, so there was consideration of including a separate space for the staff to perform whatever administrative tasks inside there as well. So we would also want to ventilate that space. The next slide gets into specific details here. It talks about architectural improvements. As I just mentioned, we're looking at consideration of a 24-foot by 16-foot office space as a carve-out. So we probably, of the 5 bays, probably end up sacrificing one of those bays in order to create that space. And in addition, a 24-foot by 13-foot mechanical room. So again, as we talked about, the consideration for a boiler system for the radiant floor heating. So again, that would also kind of take up that space that we talked about, effectively removing one of those bays. We're considering Class A fire panels, basically a polystyrene core with vinyl covered gypsum board, to enclose not only those additional rooms that would be added, but also just the exposed unfinished walls throughout the facility. As I mentioned, we talked about relocating electrical junction boxes, and then also there'll be a need to add some light fixtures to the new rooms that would be added. The next sheet gives a little detail more in terms of the HVAC improvements. I kind of highlighted those a bit in more detail, but as I mentioned, we'd be looking or recommending a VFD purge fan that would be sidewall mounted at the ceiling elevation. Again, because CNG, methane, is lighter than air. So the idea is to try to pull that toxic gas out at the highest point in the building. And then also supply air louver and VFD exhaust fan for occupant and ventilation and toxic gas removal. And that's typically at what we call is the breathing zone. So it's typically at the occupant height within 4 to 6 feet above the finished floor. Another element I hadn't talked about yet, but it's important, that goes hand in hand with gas detection, is the LED, multicolor LED strobes and horns. Our recommendation would be that those would be located right outside each egress door, on the interior and exterior sides of each egress door, so that anyone that approaches the building from the exterior is aware of the status. Our desire is always to see a green light to mean everything is satisfactory for access to the building. But if there were ever any kind of event, there would be a progression from an amber and even to a red color if it became more severe. But that notification would be evident to anyone that's inside or outside the building. In addition to that, we would also recommend signage that actually provides more detail in terms of what and explains what each color corresponds to and what that means to the workers and or any other contractors or visitors to the site. The next sheet goes into a little bit more detail just with discussion about gas monitoring system. So really, we're talking about, when we talk about gas monitoring system, you're talking about basically a controller, which is kind of the brains of the system that communicates with other equipment, whether it's the shunt trip for shutdown, overhead doors, which would partially open to enable fresh air in during a detection event, in addition to communication with the strobes and horns. So the next slide, it's actually not in this deck, but I'll just provide more discussion, is after we had our follow-up discussion with recommendations with Mr. Reeder, there was pointed out a highlighter consideration of adding an emergency standby generator to this project, because there had been some concerns, I guess, in the past around power quality at the site and some events where there have been loss of power. And so wanted to make sure that there were adequate power reserves, if you will, available in the event of any kind of unexpected loss of power to the site. And so with the gas monitoring system, the systems that we recommend typically have a backup battery supply that will meet the power needs for up to 8 hours. It'd still be valuable to have a standby generator in place in the event that a power outage were to extend much longer than that 8-hour window. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those at this time.
So everything that you've presented in your slide set and what you've explained to us, these are all of your recommendations for the project?
Yes, they are.
This is pretty much what everybody does in buildings that are going to house CNG vehicles. Is that basically what everybody does? Or, I mean, I know we're starting from an older building, and other buildings have been built from the ground up, so.
Right. So many municipalities take a similar approach as the city of Portage, where they're often taking an existing building and then performing retrofits. And that usually proves to be a bit challenging because when you have an existing building, you already have a lot of infrastructure in place, a lot of conduit, a lot of heating systems. Sometimes you'll have the large fan systems like the high volume, low speed fans in the middle of those spaces. And so it becomes a lot more challenging to do a retrofit. What we found is this facility does not have as much of those issues in place, but this is more or less a typical approach. It will vary, facility by facility and site by site, but in general, the gas detection, the ventilation, the heating system changes are pretty typical for most CNG garages.
What time frame are we looking at here for the completed project?
So it depends on when we start. And the one interesting thing is always with today is the supply chain elements that we see in the marketplace. I'd say in general, once a project is has the green light to proceed, so that means actually getting started with the design process, which I would anticipate would take just a few weeks, 3-4 weeks, to actually be able to prepare a design set, construction set to be able to be prepared to go out for bids. Upon completion of that bidding process, maybe a couple weeks to 4 weeks, depending on the city's requirements. And once the approval has been given to our contractor to go, it should take anywhere from, I'm going to guess, 6 to 8 weeks to do this, but the challenge is the lead time on equipment. So often, that contractor places his or her order upon receiving that contract. What we try to look at is what are the long lead time items. And right now, when you're looking at something like VFD for fans, because that's something with a chip, a microchip, what we found is that is usually where you have a delay. And so, and there's a lot of uncertainty with that. So you could probably get the project well underway, and then there still may be a little bit of a few speed bumps just to get towards the finish line. So it's not a long-term process, but it can have a little bit of a delay just depending on where we're at in terms of kind of in that queue of getting items, and materials, and products.
And what we're looking for today is just the approval to get the engineering study going?
Yes, sir.
That's the 4950?
We're going to seek permission from the board to develop an RFP through Crowley Engineering. So what we're going to do is we're going to seek your approval to go out to bid, to develop an RFP, so we can go out to bid and use Crowley Engineering to help us develop that RFP, so.
Okay, well, I make a motion to approve the Crowley Engineering process and assessment.
I'll second that motion.
We have motion and second. Is there any further questions? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crowley. That's a big job. Okay, I believe Pastor Miller is here with a request that wasn't on your list because he just came in the other day, but we wanted to go ahead and put him on the agenda.
Okay. Well, thank you for inserting me in this. I'm Pastor Ken from Living Hope Church, formerly known as Crossroads Family Church. We're located on Willow Creek, right at the entrance to the toll road. This Sunday, we are calling this Serve Sunday for our church. And instead of meeting and having our traditional services, we are going out into the community and doing 12 to 14 projects. And the project that my wife and I will be doing, with your approval, is setting up a prayer tent in Founders Square in the grass area, and with a double-sided sign that simply says, "Need prayer? We're available to pray with you." And so we're asking to be able to do that for a couple hours on Sunday morning. That's this Sunday. And we will have no alcohol there.
Well, we hope so. You said a couple of hours. Do you have like an exact time? So like 10 a.m., 11 a.m.?
On our, we have to set up our little pop-up tent. You know, it's not a whole tent kind of thing. And on our guidelines, it says from 10:45 to 11:45. But I would say if we are busy, we would like to extend that. Say 10:45 to 12, okay? So, yeah.
I'm sorry, what was the name of the church again?
Living Hope.
I make a motion that we allow the Living Hope Church to have their prayer tent on Sunday the 3rd.
Yes, this coming Sunday.
I second.
We have motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you
Good
very
luck,
much.
Pastor Miller. I hope you get a crowd.
I do too. We think people need prayer, so we all do, don't we?
We have bulk item appeals for 3206 Cooley.
Oh, yes, a bulk item appeal form that's before you, it's the amount for $25 for 3206 Cooley. The charge occurred back on February 11th, 2020. It's been long ago. The board has reviewed this in the past, and due to other due to other situations that have come to arise, she did meet with me at my office. She did show me a video of the actual guys picking it up on that particular day, and they busted some glass, and the sanitation department did not clean it up. So she is appealing this because we didn't finish the job. I'm recommending the board to reverse this $25 service fee for this particular resident, so.
I'll make a motion, we reverse the charge for 3206 Cooley.
Second that motion.
We have motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Randy. We have claims. Has everybody had a chance to review the claims? I do believe Nina has an addition to the claims.
Yes, I have it.
So the claims total $202,755.55. We have two claims totaling $7,677 to add. Diane was out of the office on Thursday and Friday, so she didn't get to add this to the docket. So the new total would be $260,432.55.
Nina, would you get that total again?
$260,432.55.
There's the one charge to the Huntington Public Capital, the lease payment for the fire truck. Is that a annual payment?
It's semi-annual.
We have these charges for Verizon for those hotspots. Were those for the park?
Those are, we have several, they are used in, well, the Verizon ones actually, they're not the park, they're, let me see, hold on, what page? We have several different accounts. I'm not sure which department, to be honest with you, off the top of my head, just looking at the claims. We had combined all of our wireless services, different IT, into an IT kind of department. So it doesn't come out of each individual department's budget, so I'd have to double check. We have Verizon, we have AT&T, we have Sprint. I think, Brandy, do you guys have AT&T or Verizon?
We're the AT&T.
Okay. So it could be P, well, I thought PD changed too. Yeah.
I'll make a motion, we approve the accounts payable in the amount of $260,432.55.
I second that motion.
We have motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Attorney Witten, do we have any major illness claims?
Yes, we do, Madam Mayor. Actually, there's a recent addition today, so there are 3 major illness and 3 COVID leave for your approval today.
Do we have to approve those separate or just all together? Make a motion that we approve the 6 major illness claims.
I second that motion.
We have motion and a second. I have a question for you, Attorney Witten, on the COVID. Is that maxed out after 2 weeks, or is there a stipulation? Would you kind of refresh the board on how the COVID leave policy is now?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. So they have to be eligible, obviously, and that would require them voluntarily presenting a COVID positive test and a vaccination record. It's per ordinance by the City Council, and they have to have had both of the vaccines, and then, if eligible for the booster, also have had the booster. If those things all fall into place, then they are eligible for COVID leave up to 80 hours, and that is the max. There's no mechanism for additional. So if somebody falls into a situation where they are ill from COVID, which is exceeding 80 hours, then that would fall back to major illness.
So then do they have to have a negative test to return to work, or how does that work?
So that's separate from the COVID leave situation. That's more of a return to work situation, and actually the policy is somewhat silent as to whether or not a negative test is required to return to work. However, using sort of the rule of reason, some of the guidelines from the CDC. What I've been recommending is, of course, if they're still experiencing symptoms, we don't want them back to work. If they're symptom-free and enough time has passed under the policy, then they can return to work, but I still suggest they wear a mask for 5 to 10 days, depending.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions about that? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye on the claims.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Any other business to come before this board?
I have something, Madam Mayor. So, Madam Mayor, board members, what you have in front of you is a request from the RDC. The RDC is letting out for appraisals and the public bidding process a series of lots owned by the RDC. In doing all of that, they've encountered some lots that have just been sort of sitting there that really don't have any value to us for usage. Some are owned by the sanitary board, but then some are owned by the city proper. So what I've suggested to the RDC, so we can do this all in one fell swoop, is that the respective boards, yours being the lots under the Board of Works, 6051 Central Avenue, the 4 lots between Irving and Lois, and then the 1 lot in Irving, the parking lot, would be to authorize the RDC to move forward and take the lead on getting appraisals and then offering these lots up for sale. Then I would, of course, bring any prospective offers to purchase back to this body for approval. In the alternative, the thought would be you could simply deed all those properties over to the RDC, but then you're sort of duplicating the efforts. We deed it to the RDC, they sell, then I deed it again. It almost seemed a little more logical just to have you guys authorize the RDC to take the lead in these things, and then we'll just come back to you with the subsequent offers.
So essentially just asking for us to authorize the RDC to go out for bids?
Yeah, that's basically it, yeah.
They're seeking appraisals, right?
So they're doing 2 things. They're seeking appraisals. That's part of the process to let it to the public to get offers. It's not so much bids, but that's fine. But it's more to solicit offers on the property. We have to have the appraisals to do that under the statute. So in a sense, Macaulay Bennett, who's been retained by RDC to let out all those other properties that the RDC has, they would go through that process. They would list them or solicit offers once the appraisals are obtained. They would collect those, and then we would bring them back to you for approval.
I'll make a motion to authorize the RDC to take the lead in appraising and offering these lots for sale and getting them to the right people.
I second.
We have motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Is there any other business to come before this board? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
I'll second that motion.
We have motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.